Good morning, everyone. This is LadyDragon speaking. It is now Saturday, January 11. It's 11:24 a.m. We'll continue with our speakers' presentations. This one is about Gen AI. It will be discussed by people from Microsoft, Informa, Omdia, Qualcomm. Should be very interesting. Here we go.
Good and welcome. Good morning and welcome. My name is Maite Bezerra. I am a principal analyst in software-defined vehicles towards intelligence, and I will be the moderator of our session today, AI at the Edge, moving AI from the cloud to the device. So, artificial intelligence, and more specifically generative AI, has been one of the most transformative technologies of our times. It is making us more productive, is unlocking creativity, it is making technology more intuitive, and it is transforming the way that we interact with our devices. And I think it's fair to say that AI tools have become part of our days. We use them all the time. However, most of the AI applications that we use today, the decisions that they use are running at the cloud. And this is running into some problems because we have the dependency on connectivity, we have a problem of latency, and also privacy, because we have this data moving back and forth. So therefore, we are now talking about Edge AI. So you probably already saw several announcements on Edge AI at CES. I'm sure you're going to see way more until Friday. And today, we're going to discuss some key questions. So what exactly is Edge AI? Why do we need it? What will be the use cases? And how this is going to evolve in the next years? And I am thrilled to have with me this excellent panel, because in here we have the companies that are at the forefront of this transition. And we also have analysts with the technical knowledge of the industry. So with no further ado, I would like to start by asking our panelists to introduce themselves. We can start with Patrick.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great CES. I'm Mark Linton. I'm at Microsoft. I run our device partner sales team, where we commercialize edge technology with our partner ecosystem. That's PCs, IoT, hybrid infrastructure as well. And really excited to be here with you today and talk about how we see the market.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Long. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Intelligent Devices Group at Lenovo, one of the leading devices companies in the world, solution company. I manage everything from the client devices all the way to solutions and edge devices, which we implement, which are driving use cases in different industries. Excited to be here.
I'm Durga Maladi. I'm a Senior Vice President and General Manager at Qualcomm. I'm responsible for technology planning across all of our business units. So this ranges from PCs, automotive, XR, smartphones, and the technology itself spans everything from connectivity to AI to processors, hardware, and the software solutions that come along with that.
I'm Jack Narcata, the principal analyst for all things smart home at Omdia. That includes the classic devices that we've all come to know and love, but more importantly, over the last few years, been really digging into how the business models of the smart home are changing, not the least of which being influenced by things like AI.
Hi, I'm Nicole Pang. I'm Research VP of a consumer team that is looking after not just consumer devices, also consumer entertainment, and also media services, that are really looking at the commercialization strategy for all the consumer tech company.
Fantastic. Thank you for the presentations. As you can tell, they are the people to talk about Edge AI. And when we talk about technology, I really like to take a step back and start from the basics, right? So we're talking about Edge AI. Do we know what is the edge? And what does it actually mean to have AI at the edge? Do we already have any industry standards for these definitions? Can I start in the reverse order? Shall we start with Nicole, please?
Thank you. And it's an excellent question. So I guess everybody probably hear that AI, there's a key element of AI. There is computation. There is the model, and there is the data. So where we collect the most data is at the edge. So why not we bring AI to the edge to be able to compute in there as long as we have the computing power and then the model ready. And that's the most efficient way. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, to your question on what is edge, I think we define edge in several ways. First, it's the human interface, and that's probably the core of a lot of what we end up doing is a human interface into a world, and that's the edge. It's the screens in our lives. That's clearly an edge. But I think where the interesting factors of where I think AI and use cases beyond consumer edge and productivity cases in the enterprise, where that's going to take us is on the other edge, which is the devices that are computing data, the things that are capturing sensors, the things that are changing and transforming industries, right? In retail, the endpoints in retail, the cameras, the smart home applications use cases, those are also edge. So that's how we define it. And I'll let my colleagues enter in before we talk a little bit more about where AI is taking that.
Yeah, I think some of the trends around, if you think about the edge, getting computing as close to either the data or the input-output with the user, and we've been able to do that through a few things: miniaturization of components, more powerful processing, of course connectivity. Broad-based connectivity has enabled the infrastructure there. And then as you think about AI, putting NPUs at the edge to do inferencing, and even having models at the edge to do the inferencing directly on the device, that's really where we see the opportunity for AI to be really at either people's fingertips or in an IoT setting, an infrastructure setting. You can do inferencing at the branch level. It opens up a whole new set of scenarios and capabilities there. Again, because we've got these fundamentals of the tech underpinnings and connectivity and the capability to miniaturize and get it on the edge device as well.
Maybe I'll take a step back and first define, at least from our perspective, on what an edge is, and then why is it that we need to actually run AI at the edge to begin with? Why can't we just run it on the cloud? What's wrong with that? So our definition of edge is practically every single device that we use in our daily lives today. So this can range anywhere from smartphones to PCs to I mentioned XR devices, but you can now also start thinking of the edge as that first hop from these devices. So it could be like an edge server, an enterprise server that's sitting right there in your building. It could be your Wi-Fi access point, which could act as a hub now for a lot of other processing that happens. So the definition of the edge is not just devices, but something that's absolutely close to it. So that's one level of definition of the edge. But the question is, why? Why do I have to actually, let's say you have excellent connectivity, why do I have to run any AI inferencing at the edge to begin with? I think there's like several layers to that answer. The first one is because we can. The computational power that we have in these devices today is significantly more than what we've seen in the last 5 years, especially with processors which are being designed ground up for AI inference. So just because we can, yeah, it's awesome. If you can run it directly on your device, that's great. The second level of answer is what I would call as immediacy or latency. You want to have a user experience which is completely invariant to the quality of your internet connectivity. I could be literally in a plane, not just in an airplane mode, and still get my productivity done over a long flight. And so why not if you can run it on the edge? Then there is a third layer beyond that, and which you alluded to, which is the data is generated right at the edge, which means you want to tap into some local context and keeping some of the private data, tapping into that, providing the right kind of meaningful information, you're extracting that from there, and then getting the right answers from whatever it is that you're doing with AI inference. So I know that it's a broad answer, but I think it's important to understand why is it that we even want to do any kind of AI inferencing at the edge.
And in the consumer smart home, I mean, we even see that with the presentations in the keynotes yesterday from Samsung and LG. It's a business challenge as well. This is something that's been keeping the executives and the line of business leaders up at night for how to tackle this issue, where to implement it. And from what we've seen yesterday with either home AI or the artificial intelligence that LG is promoting, just to cite those two specific use cases, how many edges are going to be on the network. So is it the edge from the service provider to the home? Is it the edge from the smart home hub or smart TV out to? So it's not just a single edge. It's almost like probably a series of concentric circles where there's multiple edges that have to be accounted for.
I love everything that you just said. And I would like to follow up on something that Durga mentioned, because you were talking about why do we need it, right? And you listed a few benefits. And one of the benefits that I was thinking is, what about privacy and data security? Are we going to see any impact on that if we move to Edge AI?
Well, I would, to pile on to the way you described it, I think there are 3 laws that are governing why edge. It's, you mentioned latency, it's the laws of physics. So there's a requirement of laws of physics. There was a laws of economics. The economics of it, you know, it's cost a lot more to do things in the cloud. Big models, why do you need something if you can do it, you know, smaller and get what you're trying to get done locally? And then the third one is the laws of the land, or where you're getting to on privacy, the laws of what people want with their data, whether that's, you know, governments or whether that's users or enterprises, what they want to govern on their data. So I think we're going to see, we're actually seeing, just because of the opportunities and the things that you can do now at the edge, you're seeing a complete reshifting of having people rethink their security policies, their privacy policies, and I think it's actually, it's something that is causing people to reevaluate, you know, how, policies.
I wanted to add that I think it's a great way to put this basic laws out there. And when you talk about the AI model these days, they probably already consume most of the public data available. So, but AI is for decision making, is personal. Everyone's decision making is different. Every enterprise decision making is different. That's why making some of the SaaS application nowadays so useful, because they know the pattern of each of the enterprise decision making, and then they will help them to go through that kind of workload. The same with personal as well. Personal, how we think, that is very personal. None of the public data available right now, none of the model that use public data to train the current model will be able to help you to make that kind of decision. So that means that we need to use personal data to train those models to help them to make the decision. Then when it comes to personal data, then we will stop and think whether I want to share this with my company, with the public world, and what's the outcome, what I'm risking over that. So it's very important to look into privacy, just because that it's my personal decision making, it's the company's decision making, it's not something that determined by the public data nowadays.
I think the privacy part, that's a good point actually that you mentioned, even on the computing. So on the privacy side, you know, one can actually look at it in 2 ways. One of that is a lot of the answers that you really want from any AI agent, and we'll probably talk about AI agents in a little bit, but anything that you want from there is very contextual in nature. I mean, you want, like for example, if I just take out my phone and point in a certain direction and say, what am I looking at? And you kind of think about it, the question is completely meaningless unless you provide some context. Where are you? Which side are you looking at? There's a lot of information that actually comes in, and I might or not be very comfortable sharing all of that. So that's a consumer level privacy concerns, and you can go into the next level as to when is my next doctor's appointment, and sure, I don't want to share all of my health data and so on. But then, as you rightly pointed out, actually we should also think of the enterprise way of looking at privacy. There's a lot of company confidential information that simply doesn't want to be out there. You probably are in the midst of code generation, and you certainly don't want that to be out there as well. So there's lots of reasons why privacy becomes not just a consumer-centric concept, but it's actually a more industry-centric concept. And to your point on models being fine-tuned, you have the foundational models, which is, you know, they're all built upon a lot of the publicly available information. But there's a lot of other models that then you start from that base and start fine-tuning based on your own model. So privacy, again, is a broad concept that straddles both enterprises and consumers.
I think ultimately, too, it's also about choice. So I think of AI as essentially becoming hybrid. I can choose to run it on my PC. I might have things that run in the cloud. we'll see ISVs, so developers and software companies, developing applications there that understand, oh, that PC has a powerful NPU, I can offload, but if it doesn't, I might run some in the cloud. And so think of that as a world where we'll have the opportunity for choice for customers, much like we do today. You might run your own data center, you might run multiple public clouds for different workloads, but you want to federate them, secure them, and then manage them in the right way. And so it's up to us to have that best of both worlds approach there. We do think that specifically the PC industry will move very quickly to AI enablement through NPUs on the devices, and we've been public in saying we think 50% of PCs by 2026 will have this capability. That then provides an opportunity for developers to write applications that give their customers choice. And of course, we'll do that within Windows and our software as well. So it's a great opportunity there to get, again, the best of both worlds. But the biggest thing we can do is really AI enable the edge so that customers have that choice and they can simply run the workloads how and where they want as well.
Yeah, you're getting into one of the things that I think is going to be a challenge that we're going to have to all overcome, and that is we do have choice. Yeah. And as you put choice in the hands of the different users inside the enterprise and the people that are using it, they want to adopt things, but policies aren't adapting fast enough, right? Your traditional, even I sell to IT shops every day, so don't take this the wrong way, but IT shops are losing some of the control points on what people are going to be doing with data and what they're going to be doing with these use cases, and that's requiring them to transform faster, or else the business is going to move on and they're going to do things without them, right? So I think that's a cultural change that we're going to start to see that's going to happen in enterprises, but also in people as they adapt.
Yeah, and that's one of the existential questions facing a lot of the companies competing in the smart home is, with all this data being generated that is going to provide the intelligence being very personal, beyond just user IDs and passwords, you're now talking about palm prints and potentially eye scans and your pictures of your face or your actual person, like your corporal form. That's incredibly personal data that can provide a tremendous amount of value, whether it's in terms of presence detection, in terms of customizing the smart home to your specific preferences. But the willingness to share needs to be, there needs to be trust established that, yes, this data is going to be helpful, to Steve's point, to me, because my needs are different than Nicole's or different than Mark's. It's going to be a really interesting time over the next few years as brands try to wrestle that question to the ground.
I love that. I researched the automotive industry, and we're facing exactly the same problem, right? You have cameras all around your cars, you have microphones, how much of this data you want shared. But one thing I wanted to bring now, and I'm sorry, Durga, but I'm not picking on you, but I attended the Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii, and I remember you saying a few times, AI is the new UI. And I thought that was really interesting way of thinking on how AI is going to completely transform the user interaction with the devices. But then it got me thinking, what does that actually mean? I remember I had a conversation with Steve as well. Is it going to change the way that I use my tablet? Would I have to be re-educated in these new tools? So could we start with that?
I can get started. So yeah, maybe, you know, there's a 20-second, if you just go back in time and think about how maybe over decades, we've changed our interaction with devices. In the 70s, command line interface. There was no graphical interface. You would just type in something. You know, some of us remember it, not all of us. And then in the 80s, with the advent of mouse and graphical interfaces, that changed. A couple of decades later, today we live in an app-centric world, by and large. It's a very tactile thing. You open as a phone, you pick it up, and you punch on something, and so on. But the truth is that for the longest period of time, I think as humans, we've been learning the language of computers. The time has come for the other way around, actually. And now we are capable of doing that. That means we can revert back to our more natural interfaces. So voice as a natural interface, and anything else, all the other interfaces become natural. But that means as the UI is transforming, instead of, and let me take a smartphone example. It's a good way of thinking about it. We all have our clutter of apps everywhere. If you want to do something, you first figure out which app it is, scroll over everything, and then click on it, and then do something like that. It's kind of irritating sometimes, but I'd rather just say, what is it that I want to do? And my first landing spot on the device is going to be an agent, which basically simply tries to understand what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish. When you do that, then tap into the local assets. There's a rich bouquet of models from which you pick the right one, which makes sense. Most of them are multimodal, so it's using a combination of voice and maybe what I wrote down and some images and video. In addition to that, get some local context, parse and understand the question, exactly what is it that you need to do, and then somewhere in the back end, you're actually trying to retrieve the information. There might still be apps, there might not be, but they're kind of relegated to the back end. The front end is dominated by an AI agent, which is simply working for you. How can I assist you? It becomes like that. That's the transformation that we are talking of from a UI perspective. I would like to write code where I don't have to keep typing in something. I just say, okay, write this algorithm for me, and then things happen. And then you kind of more interact in a much more intuitive manner. And even though I took the example of a smartphone, it doesn't have to be that. It can be any device and potentially new kinds of devices that will evolve from there. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think, and so we've been talking about agents, so Copilot being Microsoft's agent there as well, and it's not just having a Copilot for a given application that you're in, but it should understand, again, the intent of the user, be multimodal, so I could use voice, typing, etc., understand the context of what I'm doing, and help me take action and suggest things to do. A good example is GitHub Copilot, where we see many developers now using GitHub Copilot and writing 40% less code. But that was code around getting syntax correct and mechanical kind of production level code, not business logic and spending time on the value add. And so what it's done is freed up the developers to think about how do I want the application to look, feel, operate, and then let the Copilot there essentially navigate the language discrepancies or errors that come up in runtimes and compiling. So very powerful technology, just one example there of an agent that's working on your behalf. What we've seen customers want to do is program Copilot through kind of customization for their own workflows as well. I'll give you one example. If you're at a company, then you have to raise a purchase order. You have to know which website to go, what your cost center is, which budget line item, etc. Could I program that Copilot to go across my purchasing and accounting systems to automatically do that? I could use a voice prompt, I could chat in the text and have it go and do the work for me and orchestrate business processes. Another example of, I just tell the agent, raise a PO to this company for this amount of work, get me started so I don't waste an hour trying to do it because I've forgotten how to because of the systems as well. So lots of good examples there, and we're just at the start of these agents, but we're seeing developers and IT departments and also application developers thinking about how I can embed Copilot and really customize it as well.
Yeah, I would pile on. It's also allowing the industry to transform. An industry, to your AI as the UI, as you both said, it's the Wild West right now with people experimenting and changing. It used to be a very defined model to what you're describing. Companies even like Lenovo have AI now, an agent where personalization at an under operating system level that only a device manufacturer can get in and look at that kind of data. We're having our own agents. You're going to have integration with the co-pilots. You're going to have all sorts of other large companies, small companies creating these models that are going to interface in the background. But it's an exciting time to be in the industry because it is transformational.
I think, okay, I really don't want to reveal my age, but I do remember when we started seeing smartphones, and it was really a complete transformation in how to deal. I didn't even know what a smartphone was. I was looking at that and thinking, how do I use this? And it was really a learning curve, right? So through what you were saying, it seems that then it was the learning curve of how do I use these several apps that I am seeing on my screen, and now I think there will be a learning curve on how do I use these agents and how do I take best of advantage of it? And I feel like sometimes we have some devices that have the capabilities in there, but we don't use it because we don't know how to. So I was just wondering, Jack, I know that you do a lot of research on the industry. Have you seen some frustrations from the consumer side in this new tech, that they don't know how to use it, or perhaps a need of being trained to use these new technologies?
No, none. No, and that's kind of the inflection point that at least the smart home and many other consumer electronics industries are in, is there's a gap between the capability of the devices, which is very advanced, and there's this chasm, and then there's us that says, well, how do we get over here? Do we build a bridge? Do we take a plane? Maybe we take a boat, maybe we hike, right? There's all kinds of different ways to get there, and the roadmap isn't particularly clear because there's so much excitement to deliver these new features, to put AI in devices, to make things easier, to make them more intelligent. But how do we do that? And I think initiatives like Matter, other interoperability, multi-communications protocol initiatives that are in play to try and simplify and streamline that are helping. There still needs to be work done to make it easier for us as a consumer to be able to use the devices just that much more easily.
Yeah, for me, I think there's three things. Is it easy to use? Are the results reliable and what I expected? So for example, if you're using a bot and it hallucinates, do you go back to use that bot again? Do you trust? And then do I trust that AI service with my data? Because if I don't trust that, I won't use it as well. And so as an industry, we have to think about easy to use, reliability, and quality of the output, and then also trust with customers there as well. Otherwise, it just won't get adopted. And if it's not easy to use, you won't use it at all. You don't change your daily habits because it's like, hey, it's easier to do how I used to do it the old way than it is to try and adopt the new way. And so then users will typically reject it.
Right, and that's a good point, is what if it goes haywire? And there is a part of me that says maybe we could set up a demo home where the AI powering a home does start to hallucinate. What would happen?
Yeah.
I think the frustration comes in expectation, right? So people, we have our fault here. We have to admit we set expectation too high. And people thought that this can do everything, but eventually it can't. It doesn't work. It can't. It can only simply tell you what's the weather like today. So the expectation hasn't been set. And secondly, when we've been telling our clients as well, maybe to start with some features, small steps, and let people to try it. So I truly believe, we have a lot of discussion about AI PC in this show, the whole show. But I truly believe maybe you can let consumer to use the first adoption of AI maybe on his phone first, because we use it every day. So that means the consumer be able to adapt and starting to use a little bit of the AI feature day by day, but they don't necessarily, they can ease into this actually maybe like complete change of the user interface, and that will reduce the frustration that consumer have, right?
I was just going to say something about, you mentioned about the user interface. I'm actually very optimistic about how the UI is going to be far more inclusive to a larger audience than that is out there. I mean, I can tell you, for instance, my parents wouldn't be able to use the smartphone in all its glory in terms of every single setting that's out there. And I'm sure they want to, but they just can't. It's not, we made our devices so complex, and that's what makes them really awesome, but they really have to be easier to use as well. Last year, I was speaking at one of the events, and I was talking about, the change of the user interface. When I was done, an elderly gentleman came up to me, and he was visually impaired, and he said, the smartphone revolution kind of just escaped me completely. I can't use my smartphone the way it is. For the first time, it struck me, we have to think a little bit more about like all the people that actually use, not just the tech-savvy crowd. We'll always be geeked out by everything that we see, but there's a very large population that's out there. So from a UI perspective, I'm very optimistic about what we can do with AI. Tons of work to do, by the way, ahead of us. Yep. Make no mistake about it, but I'm really optimistic about it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we actually, in Redmond, we have an inclusive design lab that's run for people of all abilities, and we bring Lenovo and all of our partners in on best practices for hardware design, software design, packaging design, because packaging is often a challenge to actually get to the product. And the leader of that program said to me, voice-activated Copilot to control his PC was a godsend, because you don't have to go to a mouse and keyboard. Everything could be voice prompted. Right. So there's good examples there that we can think about, but we owe it to the industry to develop technology, again, for people of all abilities around the world as well, and that's inclusive of not doing mouse and keyboard or physical interfaces, for sure.
Yep. And in the smart home, that might be what gives it its aha moment,
Yes.
where that's the to coin a phrase, right, like the killer app for the smart home might not be an app at all. It might actually be the UI, and how simple and streamlined and natural it is to use these devices and interact with them and get them to do what they were purchased to do.
Yeah. I want to go back. Nicole said something about, you mentioned that we as an industry, we probably overset expectation kind of a thing. I'm going to disagree a little bit, because I think what we did as an industry, or what we're doing as an industry, is what we've always done. And that we start talking about the tech speeds and feeds of this thing. And I'm optimistic, like you said, and where you're going on the use case, we need to be focused on transformational use cases and what can people do differently. And that is going to, back to where you even started, going to require some of us old dogs to be taught new tricks on how we use the technology. The things, I shared an example when we were talking prior to this, that Copilot has a great functionality of being able to transcribe real time for you. We did a leadership conference where 8 different tables were supposed to go off and brainstorm like we always do. 7 out of 8 of those tables did what we always do. Who's going to take notes? Someone raise their hand, start taking notes. At the table, you were equipped with instruction set of how to use the capability of transcription and how to do real-time note-taking, and then turn that into a PowerPoint. One table did that. The one table that did that finished before everybody else, required a little more effort, so you had to change your approach. And I think that gets back to where I was saying earlier. I think one of the biggest hurdles that we're going to have, so the tech industry's got to move from speeds and feeds to use cases. And as we develop those use cases, it's going to require us to have an open mind to how are we going to change the way in which we're using things.
Completely agree. Now, one question to that is, when you have a user that is perhaps struggling with this new UI, right? Do you have the means of getting the data to see where the struggles are and how you could perhaps make it easier? And now the tricky question. Okay, if you have the data, do you have the capabilities to act upon it and fix the problems in a short period of time?
Got it. Well, I'll talk about the technology that we have. So we have a platform called Viva, which is all about the experience of employees internally. So IT can run a system there to better understand usage of technology, to help employees maximize the time. How much time am I spending on internal meetings versus customer facing? Give me a report of who I work with the most commonly. How quickly are my emails opened up? So there's lots of insight that we have from what we call the knowledge graph, which is in Microsoft 365, how customers are using that technology, and then IT can help get the most out of it. One interesting thing is that IT can also understand Copilot agent usage across, and then understand, hey, are there cohorts that are using it more? And are they more productive when they're using it? For example, in my product support team, if I'm using Copilot to find routine answers to customers' questions on a hotline, am I more productive than if I'm manually doing that search in the back-end systems? And Microsoft has found our own product support teams were 14% more productive when they used Copilot to do some of those routine tasks that you can automate. What if my salespeople are automating requests for proposals using an agent there instead, and then do my heavier sales users of that technology close their deals faster? So you can really bring together an ROI case for the CFO, as well as a use case for your employees to say, hey, when you do this, you can be more successful in your job, achieve your KPIs, and frankly do higher value work, and let the agent do the work that maybe was taking up your time and wasn't as high value as well. But giving IT the tools through our Viva platform is important, because it all starts with data, so you can help the right cohorts within your company. And once you hear, hey, I'm having troubles adopting it in these areas, you can do training, readiness, best practices, all of that stuff as well.
I think AI agents are not a static entity, but something that's gradually evolving, co-evolving with you. Like, let's say you buy a device and then you start off from there onwards. There's 2 points that I'd like to actually stress upon based on what you just said. The first thing is, over time, there is a personal knowledge graph that evolves. It defines you, not as someone else. All of your preferences, your behaviors, and whatnot, so that anything that comes back from the agent at the end of the day seems far more relevant to you over time. And that's kind of an important aspect. The second part is the agent itself, like at the end of everything, let's say that did I get it right or not, if actually that feedback is given immediately, then you use reinforcement learning to actually evolve that over time so that it becomes far more, much better predictor of exactly what is it that you're looking for. So it's kind of important to kind of understand that if we do it right, AI agents have to constantly evolve along with the user itself just to make it much better. Just like any other human, I would argue, at some point in time. If you're working that closely with someone, it's not like one single thing that's done. Lots of work to be done in that space, though, and that's a place where I think from the tech industry standpoint, we have work to do.
Fantastic. This conversation has been phenomenal, but I know I'm cautious of the time, so I actually want to finish this panel with that forward-looking question, okay? So this conversation was great on what we can achieve with Edge AI, and looking forward, I would like to hear from each of you, start with Nicole, what are you more excited about the future on Edge AI?
I have seen a lot of very creative use case that leverage Edge to do some great work. I believe a lot of innovations actually not just come from the bigger companies sitting here, also a lot of thousands of startups over there, and then to create a new use case, create something what might be possible. So what got me really excited is, firstly, a lot of models are free now. So it actually allows a lot of innovations happening on the startup stage, and then I really hope that some of these startups can be very successful and bring this use case together to integrate it with the technology we use every day. That's
brilliant. Jack?
I can't wait for artificial intelligence, at least from a smart home perspective, to stop telling me how creative and artistic and flexible it can be while I am cleaning my house and doing my laundry. I want my AI to clean my house and do my laundry so that I can be creative and artistic.
Amen.
But there is a robot there's to pick up the laundry for you now.
The robot discussion is another, maybe that's on a different panel we can talk about.
Brilliant.
So, you know, if you just think about it, it's only been 2 years since AI became such a big conversational topic, starting from November 30th of 2022 when ChatGPT was first introduced. That's when it became far more mainstream. I'm not saying that before that it wasn't out there. But what's impressive is if you just take a look at 25 months, today you have models which are like a small fraction of the size of what that original model was, and it outperforms its capability immensely. That's a phenomenal amount of progress that we've made in the next 2 years. So I'm not going to predict what's going to happen 5 years from now. We are really going at a breakneck pace, but we have to just believe in the ecosystem at large to develop these rich and compelling use cases, but also make it very easy for developers to access this phenomenal hardware and software that we're building, so they build the use cases out there. We talk about smartphones and the app ecosystem. It didn't happen just because the capabilities were there. It also made it easier to build upon. The role of the developers is absolutely key. So from my perspective, what I'm looking forward to is the developer community at large to really come in with these crazy, rich, and vibrant use cases that I cannot think of, but they'll be absolutely awesome. And we have the capabilities to actually make it easy for them to do it.
Yeah, I'll build on that and say what I'm excited about is what we're unleashing. We're unleashing from moving from devices onto experiences, but really solutions and use cases around what we can do with things. And I would love to be here. I've been coming to see us for 20 plus years. We were talking about with our revealing ages, but I would love to come here at a day where we don't talk speeds and feeds and we talk about what we've been able to transform because of the underlying things that we do, that we create. And that's exciting. And I think we're unleashing that.
Yeah, and just from me as the Windows sales leader for Microsoft, and I've worked on Windows since Windows 98, so many, many years. That's revealing my age as well. So all three of us have done that now. I'll say, look, I'm excited because as we think about Copilot Plus PCs, having NPUs on the PC, that creates a developer socket that they can develop richer applications for. And so we'll see the flywheel in 2025 really start, where millions of Copilot Plus PCs will have powerful NPUs. Developers will access that technology. We have a Windows Copilot runtime, 40 SLMs on the Windows PC that developers can write to. They can also bring their own. We abstract out of the architectures of each particular NPU, depending on silicon. Just make it easy for developers to write their applications and offload AI at the edge so that customers can do it faster, lower latency, better security, better privacy, all of the things that we spoke about. And so 2025 is the year of the AI PC for us, and with partners like Lenovo and Qualcomm, we're going to see that technology scale very quickly. We're also working with developers there to have them access that new technology as well. So it's really another flywheel of the industry, similar to client server, internet. If you think mobile, AI at the edge here is the next kind of inflection point, I think, that we're working to. So it's really exciting to be working on it.
That is brilliant. This has been an amazing discussion. Thank you so much. I'll also invite the audience to give a round of applause to these amazing panelists. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your show.
Well, that was very interesting, like I thought it would. If you're not familiar with these agents that they talk about, I advise you to watch the press conference that I did of NVIDIA. They explain exactly, they very well explain, it's very well explained what it is, with pictures and everything. Yes, Copilot agent, this is in the making for the future. This is another innovation that we have to keep an eye on. Oui, c'est comment j'ai pensé que c'était très intéressant. Si vous ne savez pas c'est quoi les Copilot agents, je vous invite à regarder ma présentation sur la press conference de NVIDIA. Il y a une belle présentation sur qu'est-ce que c'est quoi ça, les Copilot agents. Avec ça, il y avait des images, tout ça. Si vous n'avez pas vu la press conference de NVIDIA, c'est important, ça c'est une des plus importantes avec Delta. Delta, puis à date, là, Delta, NVIDIA, LG, Toyota, Samsung, ça c'est des must à regarder. Bon, je reviens à peu près dans 5 minutes avec une autre présentation. Okay, I'll be back in about 5 minutes with a new presentation. See you then. Bye-bye.